Now, if you think that the local free society that you're in can't suddenly feel like the Gestapo coming in here, think again. Let me show you a letter that just was sent to Pastor John Alexander at Church on the Word this week. You interested? Inside, it doesn't say where it's from. It's just got an address from Washington, D.C. Inside, special election year information for religious leaders. John Alexander, Church on the Word, McCowan Road. Okay. Election 2014. Dear religious leader. So it's a form letter. I'm sure hundreds of thousands went out. As another election day draws near, political candidates and those who support them may ask for assistance or endorsement from your house of worship. It would therefore be prudent for you to familiarize yourself with the law governing electioneering by nonprofits. The First Amendment absolutely protects the right of all Americans, including religious leaders, to discuss political issues from the pulpit. That's what I'm doing, right? So I'm right, correct? But houses of worship and other nonprofit groups classified under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code are expressly prohibited from intervening in elections by endorsing or opposing candidates for public office. They may not directly or indirectly intervene in partisan campaigns between candidates in any way. Please be careful about attempts to draft your ministry into any electoral campaigns. Here it is. Here it comes. If the IRS determines that your house of worship has intervened in an election, it has the power to revoke your tax exemption. It could also levy significant fines on an offending congregation or its leaders. Recently, there have been important developments in the way the IRS deals with the issue of intervention by houses of worship in politics. The agency recently revealed that it has formed a Political Activities Referral Committee, PARC, to investigate allegations made against houses of worship for potentially unlawful forms of campaign intervention. PARC is up and running and has determined, as of June 23, 2014, 99 churches merit a high priority examination for partisan political activity undertaken during the years 2010 through 2013. Listen to this now. As long as you follow the rules, however, your house of worship is not in danger of being added to that list. Remember, there are many activities in which your congregation may lawfully take part. Houses of worship and other nonprofits are free to sponsor voter registration drives and candidate forums, provided those activities are genuinely nonpartisan. Your ministry may address ballot referenda and engage in other forms of issue advocacy. What you may not do is use congregational resources to advise people to vote for or against specific candidates for public office. I would urge you to be wary of voter guides, which are frequently little more than thinly veiled partisan materials intended to promote one candidate over another. Should the IRS decide that a guide that your house of worship distributed is partisan, you will be sanctioned for that, not the group that produced the guide. This letter is not intended as a substitute for formal legal advice, and I urge you to consult with your legal counsel if you have specific questions. To learn more about issues concerning religion and politics, please visit our website. I appreciate you taking time to read this letter. Sincerely, Barry W. Lynn, Reverend Barry W. Lynn, Executive Director for Americans United for Separation of Church and State. I got something to say to you, Mr. Lynn. I'm Pastor John Alexander, Church on the Word in Douglasville, Georgia, and I will come to this pulpit and I will endorse any candidate I decide to endorse. And you can understand that right now over this live stream. And how dare you, I can see why you're doing it. What I find extremely interesting, Reverend Lynn, is the fact that you're telling me that a nonprofit cannot directly or indirectly intervene in partisan campaigns, and that is exactly what you're doing with your little nonprofit corporation. It says right here, nonprofit organization on the letterhead. You're doing the very thing you're telling me not to do. Let me say this to you. This ought to throw you. You can't tell me not to support my president. You can't tell me not to support the Democratic Party. My dad was a local 882 member of Ford Motor Company, and he was a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. And I was a born dyed-in-the-wool Democrat before I even knew what one was. And if you tell me I can't be a Democrat in front of my people, you can take this little shot across the bow and shoot it some other place. Now that's my attitude. Now I prayed that this congregation would check my emotions, and they have. So I probably would say something I didn't need to say had they not prayed that. This is exactly what this document is designed to do. Throw a little scare tactic at the congregations to see if you could. It's interesting it landed the week before the election. Here's why you did it. You know that the party that just gave you a big bunch of money for your local, your little Washington nonprofit organization, and you're doing them a big favor. See, the borrower is serving to the lender, and you've become the Democratic Party's little slave. That's what's happened to you. And I'll tell you this right now. I looked you up online. I've heard of you for years. You used to banter back and forth between with you and Jay Sekulow, and he finally got tired of it and quit blogging with you. But I can tell you this: if I were like you and were in the fading years of a less than mediocre career, I'd take this as a bonanza. But I'm not. I'm a man that's going to stand up for what's right. It's right to tell a people what the party platform is. Any party platform that will say that the womb of a woman is the slaughterhouse for children ought never be voted in anywhere. I don't care who the candidate is. And you might say, but Pastor, that's the law of the land. It may be, but I still don't have to vote those idiots in office, because every time you do, you just send more funds to hurt these young girls. I have to counsel the young girls that have aborted children and wish they'd never done it. But they did it because it was legal. And when the day comes when we can get up off of our rear ends and the sleeping giant is awakened, yeah, they threaten us all with taking away our 501c3 status and our tax exemption. If you do that, you'll do it to your own peril, because our churches will then become full-blown convention centers for all the politics that you don't want us involved in the first place. Think a little bit.